The letter wasn't meant for her. Elena Reyes stood frozen in Nathan Blackwood's private study, a stack of unsent letters trembling in her hands. Letters addressed to someone named E. Letters that spanned 3 years. Letters that described a woman in such intimate detail, such desperate longing, that Elena's chest ached reading them. And then she saw her own name. Elena. My Elena. The woman who brings me coffee at exactly 8:15 every morning and has no idea she's the reason I still believe in anything at all. She'd worked for him for 3 years. 3 years of professional distance, cold formality. 3 years earlier, Elena Reyes had exactly $47 in her checking account, a final notice from her landlord, and one interview standing between her and complete financial ruin. Blackwood Industries occupied the top 15 floors of the tallest building in Manhattan. The elevator ride alone took nearly 2 minutes. Elena spent every second of it trying not to hyperventilate. She needed this job, not wanted, needed. Her mother's medical bills had consumed everything. The experimental treatment insurance refused to cover, the specialists, the round-the-clock care. Elena had burned through her savings, maxed out 3 credit cards, and was now 1 missed rent payment away from homelessness. The elevator doors opened to a reception area that probably cost more than Elena's entire apartment building. Miss Reyes? A severe-looking woman in a charcoal suit approached. I'm Margaret Chen, head of human resources. Mr. Blackwood will see you now. Elena's stomach propped. Mr. Blackwood? I thought I was interviewing for an executive assistant position. You are. Margaret's expression revealed nothing. Mr. Blackwood insists on conducting final interviews himself for anyone who will have direct access to his schedule. Follow me. The corner office was all glass and cold minimalism, and behind a desk that probably cost more than Elena's annual salary sat Nathan Blackwood. She'd seen photos. Everyone had. 34 years old, built a tech empire from nothing, worth somewhere north of $12 billion. The financial magazines called him the Ice King of Wall Street. Never married, never photographed with a romantic partner, ruthlessly private. The photos hadn't prepared her for the reality. Dark hair, slightly disheveled, jaw sharp enough to cut glass, eyes the color of a winter storm, gray and piercing, and utterly unreadable. He looked up from his computer, and Elena felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Miss Reyes. His voice was low, measured. Sit. Not please sit. Not would you like to sit. Just sit. She sat. Your resume is impressive. Stanford undergraduate, top of your class. He flipped through papers without looking at them. But you spent the last 2 years working at a nonprofit that pays roughly 1/3 what this position offers. Why this sudden interest in corporate work? Elena had prepared for this question, had rehearsed a smooth answer about professional growth and new challenges. What came out was the truth. My mother has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The treatment that might save her life costs $800,000. Insurance won't cover it. She met his eyes, refusing to look away. I need money, Mr. Blackwood. A lot of it, fast. And I'm willing to work harder than anyone you've ever hired to get it. Silence. Nathan Blackwood studied her for so long that Elena was certain she'd just destroyed her only chance at this job. Who admitted financial desperation in an interview? Who told a billionaire they were only there for the money? Someone desperate enough to have nothing left to lose. When do you need the first payment? He asked finally. Elena blinked. What? For your mother's treatment. When is the first payment due? 3 weeks. And how much is each payment? The treatment requires 5 sessions, $160,000 each. Nathan wrote something on a notepad, tore off the page, and slid it across the desk. Elena looked at the number. Her heart stopped. $800,000 as a signing bonus. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will work directly for me. 12-hour days minimum. You will be available at all hours. You will handle information that could collapse markets if leaked. In exchange, you will receive this bonus immediately, a salary of $250,000 per year, and full benefits effective the moment you accept."
He stood, buttoning his jacket. "Your mother will receive her first treatment within the week. The rest will be handled. All you have to do is say yes." Elena's hands shook. "Why? You don't know me. You have no reason to." "I have my reasons." His expression gave nothing away. "Do we have a deal, Miss Reyes?" She thought about her mother, about the apartment she was about to lose, about the $47 that wouldn't even cover dinner tonight. "Yes," she said, "we have a deal." She didn't know then that Nathan Blackwood had just saved her life, or that she would spend the next 3 years wondering why. Elena learned quickly that Nathan Blackwood was exactly what the magazine said: cold, demanding, impossible to please. But she also learned things the magazines didn't know: that he worked 18-hour days and slept on the couch in his office more often than his penthouse. That he had coffee delivered anonymously to the security guards every morning. That he'd quietly paid off the mortgage of his driver's family when the man's wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
That beneath the ice, there might be something almost human. "Miss Reyes," Nathan's voice cut through her thoughts. "Why are you staring at me?" Elena felt heat rush to her cheeks. She'd been caught. "I wasn't staring. I was waiting for you to finish reviewing the quarterly reports." "You were staring." He didn't look up from his computer. "You do it frequently. Usually when you think I'm not paying attention." "I was just thinking that you look tired, sir. You've been here since 5 this morning. It's almost midnight." "Your concern is noted and unnecessary." "The Morrison contract?" Elena handed him the folder. "Signed. They accepted our terms." "Good." Silence. Then, without looking at her, he said, "Your mother's second treatment went well. Dr. Chen is optimistic." Elena froze. "How did you know about Dr. Chen?" "I know about everything that concerns my employees, Miss Reyes." His fingers moved across the keyboard. "You should go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be long." It was the closest thing to kindness he'd ever shown her. She thought about it the entire subway ride home. The gala was everything Elena hated. Champagne she couldn't afford, dresses that cost more than cars, people who looked through her like she was furniture. She was only here because Nathan had demanded her presence, something about needing his assistant nearby for urgent communications. So she stood against the wall in a borrowed dress, watching Manhattan's elite congratulate themselves on their wealth, and tried not to feel invisible. "Miss Reyes?" Nathan materialized beside her, 2 champagne glasses in hand. He offered her one. "I don't drink on the job, sir." "You're not on the job." He took a sip from his own glass. "You're at a party. At least pretend to enjoy yourself." "Hard to enjoy myself when I don't belong here." Something flickered in his gray eyes. "You think you don't belong?" "I'm an assistant, Mr. Blackwood. These people are—" She gestured vaguely. "These people." "These people are shallow, self-important parasites who inherited their wealth and have never worked a day in their lives." Nathan's voice was ice. "You graduated top of your class. You work harder than anyone in my company. You've read more books than most of these people have seen." He leaned closer, and Elena caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and warm. You belong anywhere you choose to be, Miss Reyes. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, including yourself. Before she could respond, a woman appeared, blonde, beautiful, designer dress that probably cost more than Elena's annual rent. Nathan, darling, Victoria Ashworth pressed a kiss to his cheek. I've been looking for you everywhere. Victoria, Nathan's voice cooled several degrees. This is Elena Reyes, my assistant. Victoria's eyes swept over Elena with practiced dismissal. How nice. She turned back to Nathan. Come dance with me. Father's been asking about you. I'm occupied. With your assistant? Victoria laughed. I'm sure she won't mind. Elena started to step back. It's fine, sir. I should probably... Stay. Nathan's hand closed around her elbow, gentle but firm. Victoria, if you'll excuse us, Miss Reyes and I were in the middle of an important conversation. Victoria's smile turned brittle. Of course, we'll catch up later. She disappeared into the crowd. You didn't have to do that, Elena said quietly. I know. Nathan released her arm. But I wanted to. They stood in silence, watching the party swirl around them. Why did you help me? Elena asked finally, the question she'd been carrying for 8 months. When you hired me, the signing bonus, you didn't know me. You had no reason. I had reasons. He finished his champagne. They're simply not reasons I'm prepared to share. But some things are worth waiting for, Miss Reyes. Nathan's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Elena saw something beneath the ice, something almost vulnerable. Understanding will come with time. He walked away before she could ask what he meant. Elena's mother survived. Against all odds, against every statistic and prognosis, Maria Reyes completed her treatment and went into remission. The doctors called it a miracle. Elena knew it was something else entirely. She knocked on Nathan's office door at 7 in the morning before anyone else arrived. Come in. He looked up from his computer, and Elena saw the exhaustion she'd learned to recognize, the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He'd been here all night again. Miss Reyes, you're early. My mother's scans came back yesterday. She stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. She's cancer-free. Something shifted in Nathan's expression, too fast for Elena to read. That's excellent news. You must be relieved. I am. She moved closer to his desk. I'm also confused. About? About why you've paid for everything, not just the treatment. Her voice shook slightly. The apartment she's living in now, the full-time nurse, the experimental medications that weren't covered by the original program. I've seen the bills, Mr. Blackwood. Or rather, I've seen that there are no bills, because someone keeps paying them. Nathan's face was unreadable. Your mother needed care. She's receiving care. I fail to see the problem. The problem is that you've spent over $2 million on my mother's health. The problem is that you did it without telling me. The problem is that I don't understand why. You work for me. That doesn't explain $2 million. Elena planted her hands on his desk, forcing him to meet her eyes. What do you want from me, Nathan? It was the first time she'd used his first name. Something dangerous flickered in his gaze. What I want, he said slowly, is irrelevant to this conversation. I don't believe you. Then you're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. He stood, and suddenly the desk between them felt like nothing at all. You want the truth, Miss Reyes? The truth is that I have spent the last year trying to convince myself that what I feel for you is professional admiration, respect for a competent employee. His voice dropped. The truth is that I watch you bring me coffee every morning and wonder what it would be like to wake up next to you. The truth is that I've memorized the exact shade of brown in your eyes and the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. The truth is that helping your mother was the only way I could think to be close to you without destroying everything. Elena couldn't breathe. I am your employer, Nathan continued. Acting on these feelings would be an abuse of power that I refuse to commit. So I will continue to pay your mother's bills, and I will continue to keep my distance, and you will continue to pretend you don't catch me looking at you when you think I'm working. He sat back down. Is there anything else, Miss Reyes? Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. 1,000 responses crowded her throat, but she couldn't speak. She turned and walked out. Neither of them mentioned the conversation again.
The job offer came from Hartwell Technologies, $350,000 salary, Chief Operations Officer title, complete autonomy. It was everything Elena should want. I need to tell Mr. Blackwood. Elena sat in Margaret Chen's office, the offer letter clutched in her hands. It wouldn't be right to accept without... Without what, exactly? Margaret's eyes were knowing. Without his permission? You're not his property, Elena. You're an employee. Employees leave for better opportunities. It's not that simple, isn't it? Elena thought about the year since Nathan's confession, the careful distance they'd maintained, the way he still watched her when he thought she wasn't looking, the way her chest still ached every time their hands accidentally touched. Nothing had happened between them. Nothing could happen between them. He was her boss. She was his subordinate. The power imbalance was insurmountable. But still, what would you do? Elena asked quietly. Margaret was silent for a long moment. I would ask myself whether I'm staying because of professional obligation or something else entirely, and then I would be honest about the answer. That night, Elena typed her resignation letter. She deleted it 16 times. She never submitted it. It was a Wednesday when everything changed. Nathan was in Tokyo for an acquisition meeting. Elena was alone in his office, filing documents that had accumulated during his absence. The drawer stuck. She pulled harder. Something shifted inside, and when she finally wrenched it open, a stack of papers spilled onto the floor. Letters. Dozens of them. All handwritten. All in Nathan's sharp, elegant script. All addressed to someone named E. Elena knew she shouldn't read them. Knew it was a violation of privacy that could cost her everything. But her name caught her eye. Elena. December 15th, 2021. Dear E. She brought me coffee this morning at exactly 8:15, same as every day. And same as every day, I wanted to tell her the truth, that I've spent 2 years falling in love with someone I can never have. Elena's hands began to shake. She read the next letter and the next. March 3rd, 2022. Dear E. I watched her laugh today, really laugh, at something one of the interns said. I've been replaying the sound in my head for hours. I think I would burn my entire empire to the ground just to hear it again. And the next. July 19th, 2022. Dear E. Her mother's health is improving. The treatments are working. I should feel guilty for using her situation to keep her close, but I can't. These are the only moments I have with her, and I'm too selfish to give them up. And the next. November 4th, 2023. Dear E. She wore blue today. God help me, I'm writing about the color of her dress, but she looked so beautiful that I forgot how to speak when she walked in. 3 years of loving this woman, and I still can't form words around her. Elena stopped counting after 30 letters. 3 years of confessions. 3 years of longing. 3 years of a man who had everything in the world except the one thing he wanted. Her. The phone rang. Elena answered automatically, her voice hollow. Mr. Blackwood's office? Elena? Nathan's voice came through the line. Is everything all right? You sound strange. I found your letters.
Silence. A horrible, devastating silence. Elena? His voice cracked. Elena, please. 3 years? Her own voice didn't sound like hers. 3 years you felt this way and you never... I couldn't. Why? Why couldn't you just tell me? Because you work for me. Nathan's words came rough, raw. Because telling you would have been manipulation, coercion. You didn't have the power to say no. Not really. Not when I was paying for your mother's treatment. Not when your entire career was in my hands. So instead, you wrote letters you never sent? Instead, I tried to love you from a distance without destroying both of us. Elena closed her eyes. The letters were still in her hands. Proof of 3 years of silence. 3 years of missed chances. 3 years of 2 people orbiting each other, too afraid to close the gap. Come home, she whispered.
Come home, Nathan. She took a breath. We need to talk, in person, about everything. A long pause. I'll be on the next flight. Nathan arrived at midnight. Elena was waiting in his office, the letters spread across his desk like evidence, like a confession laid bare. He stopped in the doorway, still in his business suit, wrinkled from the 14-hour flight, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and something that looked like fear. I read all of them, Elena said. I know. 3 years worth of letters. 3 years of you watching me and wanting me and never saying anything. Nathan moved into the room, slow, careful, like she was something fragile that might break. I told you why. Because of the power imbalance. Because you didn't want to coerce me. Because I would rather have you as my assistant than not have you at all. His voice broke. Because losing you completely seemed worse than never having you the way I wanted. And what about what I wanted? Nathan went still. Elena stood, the letters falling from her hands. Did you ever think about that? About what I might feel? What I might want? You never indicated. Because you never gave me room to. She stepped closer. You decided unilaterally that telling me would be manipulation. You decided that staying silent was noble. You decided that you knew what was best for both of us. I was trying to protect you. From what? From knowing that someone loved me? From having a choice? From me. Nathan's eyes were anguished. I was trying to protect you from me. From the pressure of refusing a man who signs your paychecks. From the impossibility of consenting to someone who holds your career in his hands. So instead, you held it all inside, wrote letters you never sent, loved me in secret for 3 years.
Yes. Elena was close enough to touch him now, close enough to see the pulse hammering in his throat. Do you want to know what I would have said? She asked quietly. If you had asked me, if you had given me the choice. Nathan's jaw tightened. Don't. I would have said yes. The words hung in the air between them. I would have said yes, Nathan. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, yesterday. The answer has always been the same. Elena reached up, touched his face. You're not the only one who's been hiding. Nathan's control shattered. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. Like 3 years of silence and longing had finally broken through every wall he'd built. Elena kissed him back, and for the first time in 3 years, neither of them had to pretend. The resignation letter was Elena's idea. I can't work for you anymore, she said the next morning, curled against Nathan's chest in his penthouse bedroom. The sun was just starting to rise over Manhattan. Not if we're going to do this properly. Nathan's arms tightened around her. You could run the foundation,
My charitable arm is looking for a director. That would still be working for you.
No, he pressed a kiss to her hair. It would be working for a separate nonprofit organization that happens to bear my name. Completely different. Elena laughed. You're impossible. I'm practical. He tilted her chin up to look at him. And I'm not letting you go. Not after waiting 3 years to hold you like this. The truth was, Elena didn't want to be let go. Her mother's recovery was complete. Her debts were paid. For the first time in years, she didn't need Nathan Blackwood's money, or his connections, or his power. What she needed was him. The announcement came 2 weeks later. Elena Reyes had been appointed executive director of the Blackwood Foundation, effective immediately. The press release mentioned her impressive credentials, her years of experience, her passion for charitable work. It didn't mention that she'd moved into Nathan's penthouse. It didn't mention the ring he'd placed on her finger 3 days after she resigned. It didn't mention the letters, now kept in a wooden box by their bed, that Elena read sometimes when Nathan worked late. Some things were private. Some things were theirs alone.
6 months later, Elena stood in Nathan's home office, the same room where she'd found the letters that changed everything. But it looked different now, warmer, lived in. There were photos on the walls, her mother's recovery celebration, their engagement party, the quiet wedding they'd had in the Blackwood family garden. She was holding something in her hands. A letter. But this time, it was from her. "My darling Nathan," she'd written, "I have news." She heard his footsteps in the hallway. "Elena?" He appeared in the doorway, concern flickering across his face. "You're crying. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she smiled through her tears. "Everything's right." She handed him the letter. Nathan read it again, looked up at her with something raw and wondering in his eyes. "You're sure?" The doctor confirmed it this morning. Elena placed his hand on her stomach. 8 weeks. Nathan pulled her into his arms and held her like she was everything he'd ever wanted. Because she was. "I have 3 years of letters I never sent you," he murmured against her hair. "Now I'll have a lifetime to tell you everything in person." Elena thought about the assistant who'd walked into his office with $47 and no hope. She thought about the letters, the secrets, the 3 years of silent longing. She thought about how sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones that happen fast and loud. They're the ones that happen quietly, slowly, in coffee cups and careful distances, and words written but never sent, until one day they're finally spoken out loud. "I love you," Elena said. "I know," Nathan replied. "I've loved you longer." She laughed, and he kissed her, and somewhere in Manhattan, a billionaire who'd spent 3 years writing letters finally had everything he'd ever wanted. Not the empire, not the money, not the power. Just her, just them, just love.